several hundred of our craft holding high jinks. A number of herds had paid off their outfits and were sending them home, while from the herds for sale holding along the river, every man not on day herd was paying his respects to the town. We had not been there 5 minutes when a horse race was run through the main street, Nat Straw and Jim Flood acting as judges on the outcome. The officers of Ogallala were a different crowd from what we had encountered at Dodge, and everything went. The place suited us. Straw had entirely forgotten our cow of the night before, and when the rebel handed him his share of the winnings, he tucked it away in the watch pocket of his trousers without counting. But he had arranged a fiddling match between a darky cook of one of the returning outfits and a locoed white man, a mendicant of the place, and invited us to be present. Straw knew the foreman of the outfit to which the darky belonged, and the two had fixed it up to pit the two in a contest, under the pretense that a large wager had been made on which was the better fiddler. The contest was to take place at once in the corral of the Lone Star livery stable, and promised to be humorous, if nothing more. So after the race was over, the next number on the program was the fiddling match, and we followed the crowd. The rebel had given us the slip during the race, though none of us cared, as we knew he was hungering for a monte game. It was a motley crowd which had gathered in the corral, and all seemed to know the farce to be enacted, though the Texas outfit to which the darky belonged were flashing their money on their dusky cook as the best fiddler that ever crossed Red River with a cow herd. "Oh, I don't know that your man is such an old bull as all that," said Nat Straw. "I just got 100 posted which says he can't even play a decent second to my man. And if we can get a competent set of judges to decide the contest, I'll wager a little more on the white against the black, though I know your man is a crackerjack." A canvass of the crowd was made for judges, but as nearly every one claimed to be interested in the result, having made wagers, or was incompetent to sit in judgment on a musical contest, there was some little delay. Finally, Joe Stallings went to Nat Straw and told him that I was a fiddler, whereupon he instantly appointed me as judge, and the other side selected a red-headed fella, belonging to one of Dillard Fant's herds. Between the two of us, we selected as the third judge a bartender whom I had met the night before. The conditions governing the contest were given us, and 2 chuck wagons were drawn up alongside each other, in one of which were seated the contestants, and in the other the judges. The gravity of the crowd was only broken as some enthusiast cheered his favorite or defiantly offered to wager on the man of his choice. Numerous sham bets were being made, when the red-headed judge arose and announced the conditions, and urged the crowd to remain quiet, that the contestants might have equal justice. Each fiddler selected his own piece. The first number was a waltz, on the conclusion of which partisanship ran high, each faction cheering its favorite to the echo. The second number was a jig, and as the darky drew his bow several times across the string tentatively, his foreman, who stood 6 inches taller than any man in a crowd of tall men, tapped himself on the breast with one finger, and with the other pointed at his dusky champion, saying, "Keep your eye on me, Price. We're going home together, remember, you black rascal. You can make a mockingbird ashamed of itself if you try. You know I've sworn by you through thick and thin. Now win this money. Pay no attention to anyone else. Keep your eye on me." Straw, not to be outdone in encouragement, cheered his man with promises of reward, and his faction of supporters raised such a din that Fant's man arose and demanded quiet so the contest could proceed. Though boisterous, the crowd was good-tempered, and after the second number was disposed of, the final test was announced, which was to be in sacred music. On this announcement, the tall foreman waded through the crowd, and drawing the darky to him, whispered something in his ear, and then fell back to his former position. The dusky artist's countenance brightened, and with a few preliminaries he struck into the Arkansas Traveler, throwing so many contortions in its execution that it seemed as if life and liberty depended on his exertions. The usual applause greeted him on its conclusion, when Nat Straw climbed up on the wagon wheel and likewise whispered something to his champion. The little old weazened mendicant took his cue and cut into the Irish washerwoman with a great flourish, and in the refrain chanted an unintelligible gibberish like the yelping of a coyote, which the audience so cheered that he repeated it several times. The crowd now gathered round the wagon and clamored for the decision, and after consulting among ourselves some little time, and knowing that a neutral or indefinite verdict was desired, we delegated the bartender to announce our conclusion. Taking off his hat, he arose, and after requesting quietness, pretended to read our decision. "Gentlemen," he began, "your judges feel a delicacy in passing on the merits of such distinguished artists. But in the first number, the decision is unanimously in favor of the darky, while the second is clearly in favor of the white contestant. In regard to the last test, your judges cannot reach any decision, as the selections rendered failed to qualify under the head of—" But two shots rang out in rapid succession across the street, and the crowd, including the judges and fiddlers, rushed away to witness the new excitement. The shooting had occurred in a restaurant, and quite a mob gathered around the door when the sheriff emerged from the building. "It's nothing," said he, "just a couple of punchers who had been drinking a little and were eating a snack, and one of them asked for a second dish of prunes, when the waiter got gay and told him that he couldn't have them, that he was full of prunes now. So the lad took a couple shots at him, just to learn him to be more courteous to strangers. There was no harm done, as the puncher was too unsteady." As the crowd dispersed from the restaurant, I returned to the livery stable, where Straw and several of our outfit were explaining to the old mendicant that he had simply outplayed his opponent, and it was too bad that they were not better posted in sacred music. Under Straw's leadership, a purse was being made up amongst them, and the old man's eyes brightened as he received several crisp bills and a handful of silver. Straw was urging the old fiddler to post himself in regard to sacred music, and he would get up another match for the next day, when Rod Week came up and breathlessly informed Officer and myself that the rebel wanted us over at the Black Elephant gambling hall. As we turned to accompany him, we eagerly inquired if there were any trouble. Weed informed us there was not, but that Priest was playing in one of the biggest streaks of luck that ever happened. "Why, the old man is just wallowing in velvet," said Rod as we hurried along, "and the dealer has lowered the limit from 100 to 50, for old Paul is playing them as high as a cat's tack. He isn't drinking a drop and is as cool as a cucumber. I don't know what he wants with you fellows, but he begged me to hunt you up and send you to him." The Black Elephant was about a block from the livery, and as we entered, a large crowd of bystanders were watching the playing around one of the 3 monte games which were running. Elbowing our way through the crowd, we reached my bunkie, whom Officer slapped on the back and inquired what he wanted. "Why, I want you and Quirk to bet a little money for me," he replied. "My luck is with me today, and when I try to crowd it, this layout gets foxy and pinches the limit down to 50. Here, take this money and cover both those other games. Call out as they fall the layouts, and I'll pick the card to bet the money on. And bet her carelessly, boys, for she's velvet." As he spoke, he gave Officer and myself each a handful of uncounted money, and we proceeded to carry out his instructions. I knew the game perfectly, having spent several years' earnings on my tuition, and was past master in the technical Spanish terms of the game, while Officer was equally informed. John took the table to the right, while I took the one on the left, and waiting for a new deal, called the cards as they fell. I inquired the limit of the dealer, and was politely informed that it was 50 today. At first our director ordered a number of small bets made, as though feeling his way, for cards will turn, but as he found that old luck was still with him, he gradually increased them to the limit. After the first few deals, I caught on to his favorite cards, which were the Queen and seven,